All right, welcome to the AmeriFirst Speaker Series. My name is Craig Olmstead, and I'm the host for today's show. We're joined by hundreds of AmeriFirst employees, realtor and business partners, and invited guests from around the country. We'll be using the Zoom platform today, so hopefully for those of you that have a video screen, you're logged in and watching us live. Apologize for the technical difficulties we had just a few minutes ago, but we are live and ready to go now. For those of you that don't have a camera, or a monitor, I suggest that maybe you find one over the course of the next 30 to 45 minutes, as we have some really cool gifts for those people that decide to ask Jocko a question today. So if you are on the computer, we ask you to go down to the Q&A session down at the bottom of your screen, pop those in there, and we'll get those answers for you towards the end of the show. I've been given the extreme honor to introduce today's guest and war hero. Jocko Willink served 20 years in the military, all as a Navy SEAL. He served as commander of the SEAL Team 3 Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi. Jocko returned and became the officer in charge of training, development, and leadership for the next gen of Navy SEALs. Jocko is a highly decorated Navy SEAL, being awarded over a dozen medals, including the Silver Star and Bronze Star with combat. He took that leadership and dedication to the public sector and started Echelon Front, a consulting firm that teaches others to build and lead their own high-performance winning teams. Jocko has written 7 books, including 4, especially for kids. He hosts a very popular Jocko podcast for leaders and is a great follow on Twitter. I've followed him for probably the last 60 days, and trust me, a great follow. Jocko, thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Craig.
Absolutely. So we have a panel of AmeriFirst leaders that will be asking Jocko some questions today. Mark Jones, president of AmeriFirst, Dave Game, our CEO, Doug Long, president of the Southeast Division, and Ron Burgum with the Southwest Division. So Ron, since you're standing there, I'd like to give you the floor and ask the first question.
First of all, thanks for introducing us. And Jocko, I just wanted to share with you the appreciation I have for you taking the time to not only give us this opportunity to listen from you, but actually for you to make an investment in us. And that's really what this is about. And what I find to be the most valuable thing to help the team out is like the books that you've written, where you're willing to share the mindset and the principles that you've learned from the SEAL teams, right? And the extreme combat that you've had and the success as a team leader and as a team member of the SEAL unit. And I think that as I've learned by watching you over the last 10 years and being friends for 25 years, I've seen an evolution that's beyond anything I ever considered. So for me, it's a privilege to be here with you. And I think, as I've said before, this is like taking, what applies in the battlefield, right, to the boardroom. And it doesn't matter if you're a soldier or a salesperson, those missions and those goals can apply and they have a common ground. So I look forward to hearing that again today with you. So let's start off with the first question, which is, tell us about what caused you to want to be a Navy SEAL. What is it when you're, an 18-year-old young man, you have all these options in your life and you make this decision to say, oh, I want to get a machine gun, I want to go fire people.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about having all these options as an 18-year-old. And I can tell you right now, I didn't have any options. There was only one option for me, and that was to go in the military to be some kind of commando. It's what I wanted to do. Since I can remember wanting to do anything, what I wanted to do was be some kind of commando. So there was no other option. As soon as I was 18 years old, I joined the Navy. Now, there was some options within the military, whether you go in the Special Forces, whether you become a Ranger, whether you go in the Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance. There's different options. I heard that the Navy SEALs was the hardest training, and that was what I needed to hear. Plus, they were in the water. I like the water. And so there you go. That's it.
Wow.
Hey, Jocko, it's Mark Jones here. Thanks again for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your service, and God bless you, man. Hey, your first book you wrote was called Extreme Ownership. I'd like to know what inspired you to write that, and when you say extreme ownership, what does that mean to you?
Well, what extreme ownership is an attitude. That's what it is. It is a mindset that when I work with winning leaders and winning teams, both in the military and in the civilian sector, the winning leaders and the winning teams have an attitude of extreme ownership. What does it mean? It means that they don't make any excuses about when things go wrong. They don't blame any person. They don't blame anything. They just take ownership of the problems, extreme ownership of the problems, and they get the problem solved. So, for a salesperson, I'm sure you see this all the time. There's salespeople that say, well, the market changed and that's why I'm not doing well, or the competitor did this and that's why I'm not doing well. They have reasons to blame. And in that same sales organization selling the same product, there's another person that says, oh yeah, the market did this, so I did that. And then the competitors did this, so I did this, and I went on attack on them. They don't make excuses and they don't blame people, because if you're not taking ownership of the problems, guess what? The problems, they never get solved. So that's the attitude of extreme ownership. And that's the reason we called the first book that, is because if you have that attitude, it'll change your world.
I love that. I love it. Thank you.
Who's next?
I think Dave.
Jocko is on mute. I want to echo what Mark said before I ask my question. On behalf of AmeriFirst, on behalf of our partners, myself, my family, thank you for the service. Thank you for making our country safe, and thank you for supporting the freedom that we enjoy every day. So God bless you indeed, my friend.
Well,
now a question.
It's my honor to serve.
Well, we're blessed to have you here, man. So kind of leading off of where Ron was, as I ask this question, I can feel my heart pounding a little bit, because take us back. You're a veteran combat soldier who has been awarded the Silver Star, the Bronze Star. You're highly decorated. You were in some pretty tough combat situations. Ramadi, you think about that. Share with us what goes through your mind as you prepare personally, mentally. What goes through your mind preparing to go into a life and death battle? How do you prepare yourself for that? As well, knowing that you're leading young men, young leaders, young SEALs that are also bred to be leaders. How do you prepare them to ensure that you have a successful execution of this mission? Take us back and walk us through what that was like.
Well, the most important part of getting ready to go on a combat operation isn't that immediate preparatory cycle that you go through hours before. We're talking that's something that you do. And what you do in a situation like that, people might think there's some kind of crazy, meditation, that ritual to go through. No, guess what you're doing? You're getting your gear ready. You're briefing everyone. You're running around making sure everyone understands the information. That's what you're doing. You're actually working. You barely have time to think about going out on the operation, which is probably a good thing. But what really counts is the preparation that you do for the months and the years leading up to that. Training with your team, making sure you practice and train in worst case scenarios. Make sure everyone knows and understands what the standard operating procedures are. Make sure that you know and trust the guys that you're working with. Those are the kind of things that you build up over months and years, so that when you get the call to go, you prep your gear, you come up with a plan, you brief the plan, and you go and execute. Now, sometimes people talk about the threat and the risk that you're facing, which you are certainly facing a risk. And on every one of these operations that I went on, certainly there was a risk of being wounded or killed, or more importantly, there was a risk that one of my guys would be wounded or killed. And so I basically break that fear, for lack of a better word. When people ask me if I was afraid of anything in combat, the thing that I was always afraid of in combat was that one of my guys would get wounded or killed. How do you overcome that fear? Well, there's two parts of it. There's some things that you can control, and there's some things that you cannot control. You can do everything perfect in combat, and you can still get killed. You can make the right decision, and it can turn out bad. And you can make the wrong decision, and it can turn out right. There is some level of chance in there. So what do? What I would do is I would look at the risks that we were facing. I would do everything that we could possibly do to mitigate those risks. We would train, we would prepare, we would look at the plan, we would think about our tactics and how they would best mitigate any risk that we were facing or any threat that we were facing. So we would do the best preparation we could. That's how we would handle the things that we could control. The things that we couldn't control, guess what? I'm not going to worry about them. I'm not going to worry about them. And every moment that you spend focused on things that you can't control is a moment of energy that you're wasting on something that you have no impact on. And so guys that would worry that, the big threat in Iraq was getting blown up by a roadside bomb. Of course, you could get shot, you could get, hit with mortars. There was a bunch of different ways to die. 70% of the casualties in Iraq were from roadside bombs. And so we had standard operating procedures in place that would mitigate that risk as much as possible. But even when you do that, there's a chance that it could be your day and you could get blown up. And if you have that in your mind the whole time, that's what you're going to be focused on. And the worst thing about that is it's going to debilitate your ability to go forward, to scan for targets. Instead of being aggressive, you're going to start to get into a defensive posture, and that's going to be bad. So that's what I did. Focus on the things that I can control. The things that I can't control, I'm aware of them, but I'm not going to worry about them. I'm going to move on and do my job, and that's pretty much what we did.
Thank you.
Jocko, man, it's good seeing you again, brother. It's been a few years. Listen, your career has taken off incredibles, and in the last few years, and you talked about your first book, Extreme Ownership, but you have another book titled Discipline Equals Freedom. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so discipline equals freedom. This is really the mantra that I sort of live my life by, and I've lived my life that way for a really long time. And what it means is very simple. Discipline on the one side is a rigid, structured way of doing things, and freedom is, hey, we get to do whatever we want. And of course, everybody wants the freedom side, right? That's what everyone wants. And the couple common examples that I give all the time are, number one, everyone wants financial freedom. That's what everyone wants. Of course, everyone wants financial freedom. The question is, how do you get financial freedom? And the way that you get financial freedom is from discipline. Because if you have the discipline to work hard, you have the discipline to put in overtime, you have the discipline to save your money, you have the discipline to invest your money, you have the discipline to not buy things that you don't even actually need. If you have that kind of discipline financially in your life, you'll end up with financial freedom. Another real obvious example is free time. Of course, everyone wants more free time. How do we get more free time? The way that we get more free time is by having more disciplined time management, by waking up early in the morning, by having a schedule, by sticking to the schedule, by not wasting your time on things that actually give you no value in your life whatsoever. Sitting around and clicking on YouTube videos of cats, right? That's a waste of time. You got to impose discipline on YouTube. And if you have those kind of disciplines in your life, you're going to end up with more freedom. You'll end up with more free time. You'll end up with financial freedom. And the same thing goes for your professional life as well. The more discipline you put into your job, the more discipline you put into your life, the better off you're going to be. And it goes for teams as well. So if you have a team, like I had a SEAL platoon. Inside my SEAL platoon, we had highly disciplined standard operating procedures for just about everything that we did. The way we lined up our vehicles, there was a standard operating procedure. The way we loaded our vehicles, there was a standard operating procedure. The way we dismounted our vehicles, there was a standard operating procedure. The way we approached buildings, there was a procedure. There was a disciplined standard operating procedure for just about every single thing that we did. And you might think that constrained us out on the battlefield. But the opposite is actually true. It gave us freedom on the battlefield. Because if I wanted Doug, if we're out on an operation and there was a building that I wanted you to take down that we hadn't planned to take down, I could just say, Doug, go take down that building over there. And you didn't need to tell me who you were going to take or what method you were going to use or what you were going to do with the prisoners. You didn't need to tell me any of that because we already knew, because we had a standard operating procedure. And you didn't need to tell your team either. So what that means is I could say, Doug, you go hit that building. Ron, you go hit that building. Dave, you go hit that building. Craig, you go hit that building. And we could get it done instantaneously because we had disciplined standard operating procedures. So that discipline inside your business will give you more freedom. And of course, are there people that take this too far? Absolutely there are. And there's some military units, some businesses where they put so many processes and so much structure in place that people can't move anymore. And that's prohibitive. So what we have to do is we have to find a balance. And that's why the book that we wrote after that from a business perspective is called The Dichotomy of Leadership. And what that's about is balancing these dichotomies. If you go extreme discipline on your troops, they stop thinking and they can't maneuver. If you go extreme freedom, they don't even have any direction. So what you got to do is you got to find that balance in the middle. But generally, people lean towards too much freedom. And in your personal life, certainly that's where people lead. So that's why I talk so much about discipline, bringing you freedom inside your personal life and inside your business.
Jack.
This next question kind of ties to
Hey, Ron, let me just interject real quick here. I want to go back to making sure people know, if you want to get a copy of one of those books that we've just been talking about, autographed by Jocko today, get those questions in the queue, right down there in the Q&A session. I know we've had a lot of people join since the open, but you get a free autographed copy of one of Jocko's books if you go ahead and ask a question, and we'll select a couple of those and get Jocko's answers. So, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Thanks, Craig. So related, there's this topic which is common to a lot of people. It's called procrastination. People get distracted. They procrastinate making those phone calls. We have a lot of salespeople on this call right now, both real estate agent builders, our loan officers, and others. And how do you solve the procrastination, the laziness, the putting off of getting things done?
Yeah, this is something that will eat your life. It'll just destroy you. And so, and this is one of those questions where, the first time somebody asked me this question, I gave an answer that people kind of were taken aback by, because it's really, really simple. How do you stop procrastination? You stop procrastinating. That's what you do. When there's something that needs to get done, you don't hesitate, you don't walk around, you don't think about how you're going to do it, you attack it and you get it done. That's what you do. That's how you stop procrastination. And what you will eventually do is you'll get yourself to where you have a habit where procrastination, I'll tell you right now, procrastination for me, it makes me angry. I think procrastination in my brain is a personal affront to my will. That's what it is. It makes me mad if I start to procrastinate something, I get angry and I immediately want to attack the procrastination and kill it. Yes. So that's what you do. You don't want to procrastinate? Roger that. Guess what? Stop procrastinating and go get it done.
Roger that. So Jocko, we have a lot of our loan officers on the call, a lot of their realtor partners. We got people who are super, super successful. We've got newbies. We've got everything in between. I'd like you to tell us what advice you would give to everyone on the call using your principles, how they take their business to that next level.
What you have to do is constantly assess where you're at tactically and where you're at strategically. So tactically is like what I'm doing right now. It's the firefight that I'm in. It's the building that I'm taking down. And that's stuff you have to focus on. You have to say, like, let's face it. If there's bad guys in the building across the street, I got to go take them out. That's a tactical problem. But what we also have to spend time thinking about is where we want to be strategically. How are these tactical moves that I'm making, how are they helping my strategy? Because if I spend all my time trying to solve little problems, solve little firefights that are going on, and I don't occasionally take a step back and look at where I'm at strategically, that can be very problematic. So what you have to do is actually, in the military and in the SEAL teams, we have a guy that's called an operations officer. And what he's in charge of is what's going on right now inside the SEAL team. We also have a whole separate human being that's called future operations to make sure that we're on track for where we want to be. And it's a luxury that we get to bifurcate those two people and have one person that just focuses on the future and one person that focuses on right now. In normal a business person, a salesperson, someone that's out on the street every day, you can't hire someone, right? So what you have to do is you have to dedicate time. You have to put some time in your day. Maybe it's twice a week, maybe it's 3 times a week, where you check yourself strategically and you see if these tactical battles that you're getting in every day are leading you in the right long-range strategy. And that's what you need to do. Because one of the worst things in the world is to sit there on a treadmill or in a hamster wheel working really hard, and you look up and all of a sudden you realize you haven't moved towards your strategic goals. So take the time to get off the hamster wheel, to look up, make sure that your tactics match your strategy.
Excellent advice. Yeah. So Jocko, as I'm listening, I know you believe in goal setting and to establish and set goals, but you also talk about how important it is to train for contingencies. I find that really fascinating. Can you give us color? Take us deeper into what it means to goal set, but train for contingencies.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, those two things aren't separate. Those things are side by side. And when we set goals, of course, we've got a mission, and we've got a path that we're going to take to accomplish the mission. But along that path, there's things that can push us off the path. There's things that can derail us momentarily. And there's things that can derail us from a path permanently. And if we don't have a contingency plan of what we're going to do when we've been derailed from the original path we thought we could take, well, then we're stuck and we're floundering. So we don't want that to happen. So that's why when we look at a mission, we look at what are the 3 or 4 most likely contingencies that we're going to have to contend with. And then we come up with some kind of a fundamental basic plan that if one of these problems occurs, we already have a solution for it. So as far as I'm concerned, those two things, they're definitely not mutually exclusive. If you have a plan and you have a mission and you have a goal, you need to figure out what are the likely contingencies. What if you've got a certain amount of deals that you think are going to come in, and if they don't come in, what are you doing behind the scenes in case that deal doesn't? What seeds have you planted elsewhere to make sure that you get the deals done that you want to get done? So yes, absolutely. Think about those goals and then think about contingencies in case you get pushed off the original path you thought you were going to be able to move down.
Cool. Hey, Jocko, I know that training and even overtraining is a huge part of the success of the SEAL teams. What advice would you give our listeners in how training would play a role in their success in hitting their business plan?
Well, training is absolutely paramount. It's to go on the battlefield without training is to assure yourself certain death is what it is. And what's interesting in the business world is it doesn't result in certain death, right? What it results in is someone goes, oh, well, that client was a bad client, or that sale was a bad sale, and that's why it didn't go. That's why it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Whereas on the battlefield, you'd be dead. So what we do on the battlefield is we train to get ready. It's always surprising to me the lack of emphasis that people in any industry, in any team, they don't put any emphasis on training. And if you can't train, imagine a football team not training and showing up to play a football game, or a basketball team not training and showing up to play a basketball game. You wouldn't possibly think of that. And yet I see business leaders all the time going out and taking their team into a business battle, and they haven't trained them properly. So how do you get good at things? You practice. How do you get good at communicating with other people? You practice. How do you get good at overcoming objections? You practice. You train. That's what you do. And if you want to be successful and you want to stay alive, you got to train.
Little different question. So if I didn't know you were human, I would question whether you are human. But that being said, on those days where you're either just not feeling it, you maybe have an injury, you're just not up for it, you're not motivated, what do you tell people?
Yeah. First of all, I don't count on motivation at all. I look at motivation as an emotion that people have, just like every other emotion, and it comes and goes. You feel sad, you feel happy, you feel motivated, you don't feel motivated. To me, those are all just emotions, and that's why I don't count on it. It's fickle. What I count on is discipline. That's what I count on. I count on is regardless. Ron, you talk about how do I feel today? How I feel gets absolutely no vote on what I'm going to do today. It gets no vote whatsoever. I don't care about it. It doesn't enter my brain. How I feel doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is do what I need to do to win. That's what I'm going to do. So feeling, not worried about it. Motivation, not worried about it. I'm going to have the discipline, and I'm going to put forth the effort every single time to make sure that I win every single day.
I love that concept that it doesn't get a vote. I love that's absolutely perfect. So for our realtor partners, from where I sit, enemy number one right now is companies like Zillow and other companies like that are trying to disrupt their business. you talked earlier my last question about strategy and tactics. How strategically and tactically would you advise them to combat that foe?
Well, with any organization, with any enemy that you face, they're going to have weaknesses. They're going to have weaknesses. And what you need to do as a fighter is you need to exploit their weaknesses, whatever those may be. So if you've got a company, if it's a company like that, well, what are their weaknesses? Oh, they're a great, big, giant technological platform with a bunch of information. Okay, what do I have? What do I have? You know what I have? I'm a human being. You know, Ron just joked about me not being a human being. That's funny. We laugh about it. Why? Because if I wasn't a human being, I wouldn't be an effective leader at all, because I couldn't connect with people. I couldn't build any relationships. So tell me who has a relationship with a website. No one has a relationship with a website. You don't build a relationship. But Zillow doesn't call me and check on me and see how I'm doing. That doesn't happen. No, I don't have a relationship with a website. A website is just a transactional thing. So you got to look at what weaknesses your enemy has, and then you exploit those weaknesses. What I don't try and do is attack the strong points of my enemy. If the enemy has a bunkered position on an elevated position on a mountaintop and they have heavy machine guns in there, I'm not going to charge up that hilltop. I'm going to wait. I'm going to flank them. I'm going to come in from another direction. I'm going to call in airstrikes. I'm not going to attack what their strength is. I'm going to find their weaknesses and I'm going to exploit their weaknesses. And that's what you need to do with any enemy.
Love it. Expose weakness and attack. Love it. This is again, thinking of the team, the folks that we have on the call, both real estate sales professionals, mortgage professionals. Life is busy. Life is busy. We get in our offices, we come in, we know what we need to do. We know we need to make calls. We know what the mission is. And then the phone rings, and then something happens, then something blows up, and we get off target. Again, how do you coach us to stay focused and stay very on purpose every day when there's so much stuff coming at us that wants to derail us from our mission?
What we need to do in situations like that is we need to prioritize and execute. We need to look at what our biggest priority is, and we need to attack that problem. Now, this is what concerns me about giving that answer right now, is when I tell you prioritize and execute, everyone says, okay, great. Here's my biggest priority. A client just called and something's blown up, and and now I got to go fix that. And what they do is they let everything else slide. So there's just like there's a dichotomy with every part of leadership. There's a dichotomy with prioritize and execute. Because what happens with people when they try and prioritize, execute, and they take it to the extreme, what they get is something called target fixation, which is, oh, I've got this fire going on right here, and I've got to go solve that problem. And then another fire pops up, and they got to go solve that problem. Then another fire pops up, and they got to go solve that problem. And what they don't look at is what is causing the fires? What is causing these problems? What am I doing wrong that I could change, where I could prevent these fires from taking place in the first place? What is the root problem? And if you never, again, same thing, if you don't detach from these problems and you don't take a step back and look for what the root cause is so that you can solve the problem at its root, then you're never gonna get off that hamster wheel. And so that's what you have to do. You have to take a step back sometimes. And this is the other thing that's interesting about this. We have these problems that explode in our face. And if our attitude is, well, it's because the support team didn't do what they were supposed to do, or the client didn't do what they were supposed to do, and we just blame everyone else. If my client doesn't do what I want him to do, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? My client didn't do what I wanted my client to do. Whose fault is that? I can blame the client, but then can I change anything? No, I absolutely can't. If my client doesn't do what I want them to do, that is my fault. Next client, how do I fix it? How do I do things differently? How do I approach my client to make sure that they understand the importance of what I need them to do? Because I failed with the last client to make that happen. So I need to fix myself. I'm not going to fix my client. I need to fix myself. I need to fix my procedures. And if I have that attitude, that's when I'm moving in the right direction. If my attitude is, hey, it's the client's fault and it's the support team's fault and it's not my fault, guess what? You're not going to change anything, and your every single day is going to look the same. So take ownership of those problems, the root of the problems, and get them solved.
Awesome, Jocko. Hey, quick another question I got, but we've got a lot coming into the Q&A box here. So you've got a very short 2-minute podcast called Good. Can you tell the listeners what that is all about? By the way, I love it.
Yeah, it's just again, this is just another mindset to have. And in the video, it's just an excerpt from one of my podcasts where people ask how I handle problems and how I handle when things don't go my way. And the way I handle when things don't go my way is I look at the problem and I say, okay, good. There's a problem. And now I have an opportunity to solve that problem. Oh, I have a client that just dumped me and doesn't want to work with me anymore. Okay, great. That means I get to go out and find new clients and get rid of someone that was probably a pain. So whatever problem comes my way, I don't look at it from a negative aspect. I look at it from a positive aspect. Good. How can I move forward? What can I take away from this? How can I improve my station in life based on the fact that this bad thing just happened? Good. Bring it. Watch this. I'm gonna capitalize on it.
Craig.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's get to the queue.
Time check out the queue. Let's see if some questions coming in.
Yeah, we've got some other questions for Jocko from the panel, but really want to get some questions answered here. And it's Cynthia, I apologize for your last name. Cynthia Yanwu says, hi, Jocko, I'm new to the real estate field, transitioning from one career, mental health, to another, now real estate. What's the best advice you could give someone who's transitioning? And how do you handle transition in your position as you moved up in the line of command?
There's a couple things that go on with transition. One of the things that holds us back when we're going through this phase is our ego. And what we don't want to do is talk to people and say, hey, you know what? I've never done this before. Can you give me some help over here? Or, hey, I've never run this part of the market before. Can you give me your insight on it? And so what we do is we don't want to look stupid. So we don't ask any questions. And when we don't ask any questions, we don't learn anything. So I would be humble, have an open mind, listen to people, find someone that when you meet someone that does well, ask them questions, try and learn from them. And if you have that humble mindset, then you'll start to learn and pick things up. Now, if you go too far with the humble mindset, that means you're walking around like a scared cat thinking you don't know anything and you don't belong here. No, you have to have some confidence. You have to have a decent level of confidence. Whatever you did in the mental health industry, well, you did your job there. You did a good job there. Now you're going to focus your efforts on a new industry. But let's face it, it's not rocket science. It's stuff that you can figure out. It's stuff that you can learn. And as you learn those things, be confident, try deals, be supportive of your clients, and you'll make that transition well. Really no factor. Good luck.
Perfect. This question comes from Dick Cayley. Regarding your comment on standard operating procedures, while salespeople claim times have changed and old sales methods are not relevant, I agree marketing has changed, but basic one-on-one sales elements have not changed. In your experience, what have you seen from your exposure to other industries? Have you seen sales training that disagrees with this position? If so, what's the difference in basic sales training strategies?
This is like when we add technology onto the battlefield. Very similar. So you get night vision, you get global positioning system, you get laser rangefinders and laser scopes, you get scopes on your weapon, you get unmanned aircraft flying overhead. You add all this technology in, and all those things, we use them to our advantage. We exploit our technical advantage. That being said, guess what? The fundamental tactics used on the battlefield haven't changed since really the invention of the machine gun, because we had to make some adjustments then. But for the last 100 years, there's really been no huge fundamental change in the tactics that we use. So I see the same thing with all different industries. All different industries, they have new technology that comes in, but the fundamental people that are fighting on the streets, the same fundamental tactics that have been used for the last 50 years, they don't change. And they've probably been used for longer than that in the sales world. Hey, guess what? I'm going to form a relationship with this person. I'm going to try and bring them value. I'm going to try and actually offer them something, whereas I'm not just say, hey, how you doing? Give me something. Can you imagine if you walked up to another person and said, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Give me something. I mean, you wouldn't try and form a relationship like that. But if you said, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Hey, by the way, I've got this over here if you need some, like if you moved into a new neighborhood and you walked to your neighbor's door and you said, hey, how's it going? Give me something. Imagine that. Imagine how your relationship would be with your neighbor. You wouldn't have one. If you walked over and said, hey, you know, I made some chocolate chip cookies. I had some extra. Here you go. I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. Boom. Guess what? All of a sudden, you got a relationship with that person. You got someone you can count on, and you'll build that relationship further. And eventually you'll be able to count on each other to watch each other's houses and watch kids and help with pets. And you build a relationship, a mutually supporting relationship with each other. So that fundamental tactic in the sales world, I don't think it's ever going to die.
Well, the other thing, and I wanted to just add to that because there's another question we had kind of lined up, which was how relationship trumps technology, right?
Yeah.
And I think you gave the example that you had about the battlefield.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we were having a discussion earlier, and again, people talk about technology. Hey, technology is awesome. Believe me, I am all about technology. But for instance, on the battlefield, if my guys were going to work inside an area of operations that was owned by the Marine Corps, I wasn't satisfied if I just sent a email to the battalion commander and said, hey, sir, I got some guys coming into your area. If something goes wrong, please help them. So here's a guy who's never met me, never seen me, and he gets a random email. And that's what I do is I ask him to put his guys' lives at risk to go help my guys if something goes wrong. Like, that's not how you do it. Every chance I got, what I would do is go in to that battalion commander, meet him face to face, shake his hand, get to know him, and say, hey, what we really want to do is run some operations in your area. It would be great if you could support us if my guys need help. And by the way, since my guys are on the ground, if there's anything we can do to support you, let me know. That's what we're here for. We're here to help win this war. And I know that we can help you do that. Let me know what you need. And that way, when my guys call in and need help, guess what they're going to get? They're going to get help. And that is based not on an email. It's not based on a text. It's based on relationships.
I'm guessing this next question might be in that similar genre, but from Lisa Spencer, do you have any suggestions for creating a teamified, and I'll put the air quotes there, approach for independent contractors? A lot of what loan officers and realtors do requires many hours of individual activity. This can feed to a sense of being on an island. Are there ways we can support each other at a higher level?
Yeah, what are we doing is there a way? I mean, there's millions of ways that you can support each other. What are you doing every day that when I have a win, you know, if I have one of my snipers, so we talk about, you talk about you being in this situation where your individual efforts count. Guess what a team is made up of? A team is made up of a bunch of individuals. When I've got a sniper that figures out some way to set up his weapon that gives him an advantage on the battlefield, you know what the first thing he does is comes back and says, hey guys, here's what I did with my weapon. Here's the advantage it gave me. I recommend everyone do it. Let me show you exactly how I did it. So just because you have an individual skill, which sniper is definitely an individual skill, but we still work with each other to share our best practices and make sure that everyone learns when an individual learns something. The other thing is, if I'm a good sniper, that's great, but I stay humble. I look at Ron and I say, Ron, wait, you're a sniper too. Let me see how you do this. Let me see what your approach is. Oh, by the way, guess what? I need some support over here. Can you help me? Yes. Are two snipers better than one? Yes, absolutely. Are we going to run drills off each other? Yes, we are. Is he going to show me some things that he learned? Yes, he is. Are we going to put each other under stress courses and do things training wise? Like if I run up against something that's really complex in the field, the first thing I'm going to do when I come back is, hey, Ron, I'm going to put you through this situation so that let me see how you deal with it. And then I put him through this situation, stress him out. He loses his mind and fails. And I say, okay, cool. Let me show you how it happened to me. Let me show the same thing happened. I failed. The next time it happened, here's what I did to solve it. So when you're as an individual part of a team, just remember that you're on a team and remember that what you want to do as an individual is support the other folks on the team. That's what a team is. That's what a team literally is. It's people working together, sharing information. So that's what you do. Try everything that you learn to share it with the rest of your team. And the stronger the team gets, the stronger you get, the stronger you get, the stronger the team gets.
Love it. Love it. Really good. Good for just about everybody on this call, I'm sure. Jason Dobbs has a comment and then a question. Jocko, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. Great information and message. My 9-year-old son and I have read your first 2 kids' books together and are looking forward to reading the third one. And then he asks, what would be your best piece of advice as a parent in helping to prepare your child for the challenges they're going to face on a daily basis at school with bullies or other issues?
So the biggest thing with your kids is you want to help your kid. You're actually asking this question because you want to best set up your kid. You want to take care of your kid. You want your kid to be in a great position. And in order to do that, what you need to do is you actually need to do the opposite of that. It is counterintuitive. And there's a couple examples that I use a lot is, for example, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, sure, it would take me, I've got a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old. It would take me, a minute and a half to make a quick peanut butter jelly sandwich and give it to him and everything's clean, it's put away. It's going to take a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old, it's going to take them 15 minutes and it's going to be a mess. And the jelly's going to be everywhere. And they're going to rip the bread with the butter knife. They're going to cause problems and it's not going to be perfect. But guess what? In that moment, they learned. And they learned how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They at least learned some lessons of what not to do. But more important, they learned that they could be self-reliant. They learned to be responsible for themselves. That attitude right there is what we want to foster in our kids. So the other thing I see with parents a lot is they won't let their kids fail. They won't let their kids fail. And if you never let your kids fail, they're not going to be able to handle failure. Your kids need to fail sometimes. And I'm not talking about catastrophic failure, but I'm talking about small failures. If they're going to make a bad decision about something, but it's pretty low impact on their life, guess what? I'm going to let them make it. Oh, you don't want to bring, you should bring a coat tonight. I live in Southern California. In Southern California, it's hot during the day. It gets colder at night. Hey, you want to bring a sweatshirt? Because we're going to be at this thing for a while. It's going to get dark and it's going to get cold. I don't need one. Okay, that's your decision. Roger that. Sounds good. Fast forward 5 hours, my son is shivering. Why? He was irresponsible and didn't bring a coat. Guess what? He's learning that lesson. So I've heard a good quote recently. It was the quote that says, the good mother fails. And you can apply that obviously to the good father as well. Meaning that if all you do is you try and baby and take care of your children all the time, you end up with a large child. What you want to do is you want to let them brush up against the guardrails of failure. You want to push them. You want to make them do things on their own. And the more you do that, the more ready they will be to fend for themselves in the world.
I've got to ask you this question. I don't know if you would still recommend this, but didn't you have an incident where your son went and cleaned up his room?
Yeah, there's got to be consequences at times. So one of the things that happened with my son, I've got 4 kids, 3 daughters and 1 son. My son didn't want to clean his room, and that's fine. You don't want to clean your room, but there's a penalty for that. And so I went and grabbed one of his toys and I said, yeah, because you won't clean your room, there's going to be punishment. And I took this little toy truck and I brought it out on my concrete patio and I smashed it with a hammer. And I didn't even, you might be thinking I'm crazy. No, I did it with this tone right here. Hey, sorry, if you don't clean your room, there's got to be consequences, because in life, guess what? There's consequences to not taking care of your gear. When you don't take care of your gear, when you don't clean things up, when you're messy, there's consequences for that. And the consequence for your case is that I need to destroy one of these things because you need to learn the lesson. And people are shocked by that. Guess how many toys I destroyed in my son's, he's now an older kid. He's 16, doesn't have toys anymore. But the number of toys that I destroyed in his life for having a messy room was 1. Lesson learned, never happened again.
Love it. Love it. Barb Deggins asks, how do I deal with time management when I have more things to do than time? I think there's a few people on the call probably looking for this answer. I've been letting planning and training slide to work current business, then I end up with periods of time with no business. How do I level that out better?
One thing you got to do is you got to make sure you're following some kind of schedule, because we get distracted by things. And I'll give you one more hint, and this is the hint that nobody wants to hear. The hint that nobody wants to hear is wake up earlier in the morning. because when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. When I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, no one is awake. No one is bothering me. No one texts me. No one emails me. My kids are asleep. I was getting interviewed yesterday, as a matter of fact. I've written 7 books. I have my 8th book coming out in January 2020. It's already completed. They were asking me the similar question, how do you manage your time and still have time for your family? And I told them that I wrote 90% of the words in my books, 90% of the words in my books, I wrote while everyone in my family was asleep. While either early in the morning or late at night, while my family was asleep, I was awake and I was doing work. And that's 8 books is a lot of writing. There's a lot of ridiculous typing on a computer. And yet, how did I do it? I did it when my family was asleep. I did it when I was traveling. I did it on airplanes. You get on an airplane and you think, oh, cool, now I can veg out and watch a movie. I get on an airplane and I know I've got 3 hours, 5 hours, 2 hours that I can do nothing but work. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Guess what? I've got the same thing. I've got 2 hours before the rest of the world is awake, and I can get done so much. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, the person that shows up to the battlefield first has a massive advantage. I'm going to show up to the battlefield before you. I'm going to be ahead of you, and I'm going to knock out the important things that I know I need to knock out early in the morning so that they're done.
To that point, though, you also, in writing the books, right, you had a great plan. And you're recommending, in the same situation with this person that asked this question, was about having a schedule. So you didn't write a book in a week. What'd you do?
Yeah. This is another one, and it is I would write basically an hour a day. I'd write 1,000 words a day, which takes me about an hour. Now, that doesn't seem like very much. And let's face it, can you find an hour in your day? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Whoever's here saying, I can't find an hour, you're wrong. You can wake up earlier. You can stay up later. You can find another hour in your day. Sometimes it takes me 45 minutes to an hour. You can find an hour. You can make an hour. So I'd write 1,000 words a day. A book is 85,000 words. So I look up in 3 months, and guess what? I've got a book. Meanwhile, you talk to a lot of people that try and write books. What they're waiting for is here's what they're waiting for. I want to write a book. Okay, what I need is time. Okay, so what I need like a 5-hour block where I can get in the mental spirit of getting in touch with my creative side and understanding my flow of writing. And so all I need is 5 hours. Okay, well, when do you get 5 hours? Now I'll ask this question. How often do you get 5 hours a day? Can you force 5 hours into a day? No, you can't. 5 hours is too much. You can't just have 5 hours. I don't even have 5 hours free on a weekend. So I'm not going to get 5 hours. I'm going to get 1 and I'm going to use it. I'm going to make it happen. So those people, they're waiting for that 5-hour block, and they didn't get it today. They don't get it tomorrow. They don't get it the next day. They get it maybe on a Sunday. They get 5 hours. Okay. And so they try and write. They look up in 3 months. They got nothing. They get nothing. And so, they'll have 12,000 words. They'll have 18,000 words. They won't have a book. I look up in 3 months, I got a book. So schedule it, make it happen, put it into your world, and don't let it slide. I used to have times where I'd be falling asleep, and I'd wake up at midnight and I'd have 4 pages worth of an L because I fell asleep on my computer. I'd wake up, delete the L's, start writing again until I got my mission done, which was when I was going to write 1,000 words. So commit to your plan and then make it happen. That's what you have to do. Get up early. Sorry.
Well, I know a lot of people that are up at 4:30 in the morning, and those are a whole bunch of the 300,000 followers you have on Twitter, because they all take a picture of their watch and tweet it to you. Is that correct? Because I don't see them until about 6:30 in the morning, but I see that you've started a trend with people taking a picture of their watch and tweeting it.
Yeah, there's definitely some people that do that for sure. Indeed.
I think it's great. Luke Caldwell asks, appreciate your service. And do you have to register your hands as a deadly weapon?
No, that's a fallacy. That you don't actually have to register your hands as a lethal weapon. I do train a lot of jiu-jitsu. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 25 something years. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoy fighting. And so I don't know if this was some kind of a challenge from him, but I accept the challenge.
I actually know Luke, and I don't think Luke he was challenging you. A related question. This is something that comes up. It happens all the time, which is the books about discipline equals freedom, and procrastination, laziness, etc. But here's the big one, right? How do you get discipline?
Yeah, this is something where people think that discipline, that there's some magic special potion or some reading that you could do or some meditation that you can do that's going to get you disciplined. And I'm sorry to break the news to you, it's all a lie. But here's the good part. The good part is where you get disciplined from is you. That's where you get it from. You make the decision that you're going to be disciplined. When you make that decision, you stick to it. That's all there is. No compromise. Hey, look, in business, we got to compromise. In life, we got to compromise. If we didn't compromise in business, if we didn't compromise in life, if we didn't compromise if I didn't compromise with my wife about what we were going to have for dinner, I wouldn't be married. If I didn't compromise with my kids about how they wanted to do something, they would turn out horrible kids because they wouldn't be able to think for themselves. So you got to compromise with other people all the time. The one person you don't have to compromise with is yourself. It's with yourself. You don't have to compromise. Here's another thing I said. I don't negotiate with weakness. Like I have the weak thought tells me, oh, you know what? You don't need to write your 1,000 words today, or you don't need to get up and work out today, or you can sleep in today. No, that's just weakness in my head trying to rationalize an excuse. And all of the excuses that you have are lies. The excuses are lies. You have to attack those weaknesses. You have to attack those lies. You have to tell yourself the truth, and you have to hold the line with discipline. It's not magic. There's no magic way of getting it. But if you implement it in your life, you will see that it is magic. So that's what you have to do to get discipline. You have to get discipline.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I've got a few questions here that talk about a plan, a daily plan, a weekly plan. What does your typical day look like? And do you ever fall off that plan, if there is one? Do you fall off of that? And what happens? How do you get back on?
Well, yeah, I always have a schedule that I'm going to try and do during a day. Now, all my days usually look very different because I travel a lot. I'm working with different companies, different businesses, different time zones. So the things that I try and maintain consistency on is I always wake up early. I always work out very early in the morning to get it done with. And I'll tell you right now, one of the reasons I do that is because if I don't work out in the morning, I get home from work for 7 o'clock. And all of a sudden, my kid wants my young daughter, who's 9 years old, she wants to read a book with me. No, sorry, I'm going to go work out. No, I didn't make the right decision early in the morning, and now I'm going to make my daughter pay the price for that. Unacceptable. So that's why I get the workout done early in the morning. And then what I do is I start working. And, I was just talking to Ron, and he's like, well, what about it? What are you doing on the weekends? I'm like, working. What about Fridays? Working. That's what I'm doing. I'm working. I'm working because, we talk about goal setting. I've got things that I want to accomplish, and I'm not going to relent, and I'm not going to let up until I get them done. So yeah, make a schedule, stick to your schedule. When you get derailed, this happens in all kinds of different situations in life, right? You go on you clean up your eating, and you decide you're not going to eat donuts anymore. And you go for 3 weeks and you haven't had a donut in 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, some insurgent brings donuts into the office, and you break down in a moment of mental weakness and you have a donut. Okay, what do? You fell off the path. What you do is you just get back on the path. Don't eat pizza for lunch. Have a salad. Like, you do the right thing. So you make a mistake, cool. See, sometimes people use that mistake as a reason just to go completely off the rails. For me, I look at it as a little recon of what weakness is like. Oh, accidentally ate some crappy food, or I accepted the fact that I ate some crappy food. Cool. Time to get back on the path. Here's one thing I noticed. You eat some crappy food, guess how you feel? You feel like crap. So when you eat crappy food, you feel like crap. And I remember that feeling. And also when you eat clean, you feel clean. You feel good. When you work out, you feel good. When you get ahead on your business, when you answer the emails, when you return calls to your clients, you feel good after doing it. It's daunting when you're staring at it. But you know what you do when something's daunting? attack it. Attack it. There's something you're scared of. I wrote that book, Mikey and the Dragons, about this little kid who's scared, and it ends up there's a little prince that has to go defend this kingdom from the dragons, and he's scared of the dragons. But his dad, the king, had left him a note, said, "Listen, don't worry about the dragons. They're not as big as you think they are. It's in your head." So he's scared. He's going to fight these dragons, and he goes in the cave where the dragons are, and guess what? The dragons are small, and that's the way it is in life. We build things so much in our head. We build them up to be so giant that we're scared of them. Nothing to be scared of. Nothing to be scared of. Attack those things. Attack those things. When you fall off the path, get back on it.
Good deal. And we've got a couple minutes left. I want to try to get in. James Dix has more of a comment, which I think is good for everybody to hear. I love what he is saying about being my fault, not the clients, not support, etc. I am 100% in control of my loan process, never the agent, never the client. I make them feel in control, but I am driving the bus. Love this, Jocko. Good stuff there. Nicholas Slattery might be a repeat of something that you've said before, but what one skill or trait would you say is the most critical in achieving success in any endeavor?
This is one of those questions that are real like clickbait on the internet, and clickbait when people write articles. They say the one skill or the 3 skills, or what's the one thing a leader should do. It's like, guess what? I'm sorry. Life isn't like that. You don't get to just do one thing. Guess what you got to be? If there's one thing, it's you got to be consistently, you got to have the daily grind of doing things, the consistent daily grind, the unmitigated daily discipline in everything that you do. Everything. So that's not one thing. That's everything. I'm going completely against what the question was. Said what one thing? No, I'm saying everything that you do. Unmitigated daily discipline in everything that you do. That's how you end up. You don't change one thing in your life and then all of a sudden you become successful. That doesn't work. I'm sorry. If it worked, hey, I would tell everyone and everyone would know and we'd all do that one thing and we'd all be successful. Doesn't work that way. Here's another thing. It's not a battle where you fight one battle in one day and you win and now you're the champion. No, that's not the way life works. That's not the way wars work. That's not the way business works. It's a campaign. It's a campaign, a continuous long-term campaign that you have to every day push that rock up the hill. And if you don't move that rock, it's not going. And in fact, if you don't move the rock, there's a chance it's coming back down the mountain. So that's what you have to do. The one thing you need to do is everything. Unmitigated daily discipline in everything that you do.
And if I may,
Great.
I would add to that, prioritize those things. And so the daily little distractions, like when something pops up on your email, it's not like a squirrel, you're running off. Prioritize those things so that you're working, to Jocko's point, on the right things.
Yeah, and just to add even more to that, I always post pictures. When I work out in the morning, I post pictures when I get done working out of my little home gym. And the floor on my home gym is covered in sweat, it's covered in chalk, and it's stained from years of working out on it. And people would say to me, oh, that's undisciplined, you have this dirty floor. And I actually have said many times, actually, that dirty floor doesn't matter to me. It would take me probably at least 10 to 15 minutes a day to properly clean that floor. I'm giving that floor 0 time. I probably clean it once every 6 months. Other than that, the floor gets absolutely nothing from me because it's so low on my priority list that it just doesn't matter. So yeah, you're absolutely right. When I say unmitigated daily discipline in all things, you have to prioritize what those things are. And you have to look at what's going to give you the biggest ROI in your business and in your life. And that's where you put your time. 100% right.
So we're right at the top of the hour. We've had a couple of people that have asked about Navy SEAL training, and I think we've all heard stories about what that looks like. Can you just share with us, somebody asked, is that the hardest thing you've ever done? And maybe just share a little bit about what that life is like in the training room those first few weeks.
Yeah, the SEAL training is actually not that big of a deal. It's been built up to be this big thing, this big life-changing eureka moment for people's lives. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to be wet, you're going to be cold, you're going to be tired. You're going to do a bunch of exercises. That's what it is. That is actually nothing compared to being on a patrol in the city of Ramadi where soldiers, Marines are getting wounded and killed every single day. That is infinitely more stressful. It's infinitely harder, and it's infinitely more, it taught me infinitely more than doing a bunch of push-ups, having somebody yell at me on a megaphone or carrying boats around on my head. So the SEAL training, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not that big of a deal compared to what the rest of the career as a SEAL is like.
Awesome.
That is just the mindset, because you saw people that were super athletes.
Oh yeah.
And I think that what you saw them do.
Hey, Ron, we can't hear you, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just making a comment. I've talked to Ron about this before. I had guys in my SEAL training class, 2 in particular. One of them was an NCAA water polo team captain, NCAA champion, and the other one was an Olympic gymnast alternate. And so these guys, I was like an average, if not slightly below average high school athlete, nothing special. I played basketball and soccer in a small New England town. And these guys are world-class athletes. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm in trouble. These are the guys I'm going to be competing with. Both those 2 individuals quit. They quit the training. Why did they quit the training? Well, for a bunch of different reasons. But the bottom line is I made it through the training because I didn't quit. I didn't give up. So you definitely see that in SEAL training. People that you think are going to make it through don't, and some people that you don't think are going to make it through, they do make it through. And what you realize is that what the difference is, the people that don't make it is because they give up and they quit. The people that make it, they never quit. That's the difference.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jocko. Appreciate you letting us go a couple minutes past. Mark, Dave, I'd like to have you say some final words and bring this to a close.
Well, let me start by, again, thanking you, Jocko, for spending this time with us. This has been one of our best events, and thank you again for being who you are. Thank you for your service. Thank you for keeping our country safe, and God bless you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Dave?
I want to echo that, Jocko, a amazing hour that we will relive often as we are able to have that recorded. What marvelous motivation. Man, discipline is what, when I look at you, discipline is a new definition, my friend, and I thank you for that. We do thank you for your service. You're an example. You are a great American, and for that we're grateful. So thank you for your time, and God bless you, and roger that.
Thanks for having me.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. So with that said, we will be notifying the winners of the autographed books by Jocko over the course of the next week or so, and we'll get those out to you. We should have your email addresses, and we'll be in contact for getting a live address for you. We also have our landing page up and running, so everybody that is registered for this will get be able to hear this recording and pull that down from our site, in addition to seeing how the next month's speakers shake up. So with that said, again, we'll wrap this up. Thank you again, Jocko. Really appreciate all of your time and your insight. Very helpful and motivating to everybody. Have a great day.